Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Timothy McKnight.
Welcome, everybody. It's good to, I would say it's good to see you, but I can't see you. And I shouldn't say it's good to not see you. So it's good to know you're with me here this evening, even though I can't see you. This is week 6, so we're halfway through the program. And we're really hitting sort of the core of the program as we've talked about nutrition the last few weeks. So I want to highlight some of the things we talked about last week. I really tried my hardest to eliminate as many slides as I can from these Tuesday night reviews. I wasn't able to eliminate too many, but I promised not to spend a lot of time on these slides because it should be a review. So I'm just going to emphasize a few things. These are the goals that I asked you to work on for this last week. And let's move on to the joke of the day. The doctor asked me to spend at least an hour a day on the treadmill, and apparently this was taken literally. Then I wanted to give you an inspirational piece, and you have to kind of stand on your, lay on your side and look at this picture. So what I thought I would do is exit out. Lori has helped me get better with this portion of the presentation. So let me see if I can show you the video I wanted you to see. This is my dad on his 92nd birthday. We were out golfing, and I just want you to see what you can do when you get older here.
Oh, nice. Put it on the green.
So that tee shot that he hit, he knocked it on the green. That was pretty neat for me to see that. And he golfed last year. It was much slower, but he's approaching 95 this summer, and he's slowed down quite a bit, but he's still trying to stay active. So there's your inspirational piece. I shared with you last week the solar eclipse, and I was trying to point out that sometimes when we put our problems too close to us, it blocks out the light, it blocks out the good in our lives, and we've got to distance ourselves from our problems and look past our problems and see the good things, see the sun that's in our lives. There's another eclipse with this concept of cholesterol, and the fact, if you listen to mainstream medicine, almost everyone needs to take a cholesterol medicine. I completely disagree with that concept. And there's probably a couple thousand physicians around the country that would agree with me, but most physicians would say if your cholesterol is high, you need to take medicine for it. So the problem is if you take these cholesterol medicines without having heart disease, without having known heart disease, They don't do anything in terms of preventing heart disease. They lower your cholesterol levels, but that might not be a good thing to do. And the reason that could be bad is if you lower your cholesterol levels with the cholesterol medicines, you are lowering the building block for hormones that make us healthy. And one of those hormones is testosterone. If you remove a man's testosterone, he will get weak, he will lose his motivation, he will have more pain, he will gain belly fat, more likely to become diabetic, which will increase his risk of heart disease. He'll have more depression. You don't want to do that to a man. You want those testosterone levels to be robust their entire life. Similarly, you don't want to do this to a woman. You don't want to take a cholesterol medicine and lower a woman's estrogen, because estrogen comes from cholesterol. We do that when we do a hysterectomy on a woman. And if we do a hysterectomy on a 30-year-old woman, we knock out her estrogen levels and we make her menopausal and we don't replace that estrogen, her risk of heart disease in 20 years goes way up. The likelihood that she's going to gain belly weight and continue to have weight problems is almost guaranteed. She will have vaginal dryness. She will lose her libido. She will feel more anxious and depressed. These hormones are meant to help us stay young and functional and feel good. And these cholesterol medicines can impair the ability of these hormones to do what they're intended to do for us. We talked about another problem with the cholesterol medicines is that it depletes CoQ10 levels in our cells, and that makes us have muscle aches, soreness, joint aches, and fatigue when we take these cholesterol medicines. One potential remedy, if you're taking cholesterol medicine, is to take CoQ10, which is what is depleted by the cholesterol medicines, and sometimes that will help you eliminate those side effects of the cholesterol medications. The key points is that cholesterol medicines don't protect you from heart disease. And this is a little backwards because everybody thinks cholesterol is the cause of heart disease. It's not the cause of heart disease. Cholesterol is how you make steroid hormones. Cholesterol is a molecule important for your cell membranes. Cholesterol is a good molecule. If you don't eat enough, your liver is going to make it. The problem with heart disease is not cholesterol. The problem is inflammation. And the inflammation occurs primarily because of oxidative stress, which we talked about last week, from free radical damage, from the wrong foods, the wrong stressors in our life, the environmental triggers. And many of the studies, in fact, the last study that was published several years ago in a major medical journal said, based on this study, we're going to double the number of Americans that take cholesterol medicines because we know they need to have lower levels than what they do. And the interesting conclusion of this study was that it was performed by several drug companies who were going to have cholesterol medications that they were going to be promoting at the end of it. But again, low cholesterol does not necessarily guarantee that you won't have heart disease. It's the inflammation that comes with it. It's that C-reactive protein that is elevated. It's the belly fat. It's the wrong inflammatory foods. It's staying away from nature's foods and eating fast foods and packaged foods. It's gaining weight. It's having low estrogen levels, low cholesterol levels, inactivity. Those are the things that contribute to heart disease, not necessarily high cholesterol. Okay, so remember that all of our chronic diseases are inflammatory diseases. So this is a cross-section of an artery, and you can see, this is the image here on the left, that it's got this furry lining. That's called the glycocalyx. That is what nature intended it to look like. This protects the lining of the artery so it doesn't get invaded with cholesterol, and it doesn't have the cells of the body respond to those cholesterol deposits. Unfortunately, I've shown you this slide before. Oops. Let me see if I can go back to the slide I thought I was going to show you here. I guess not. Maybe this is a repeat. Okay. Boy, I'm having some problems here with the slides. Oh, here we go. This is the slide. But I hope this isn't telling us what's coming tonight, because we had this problem once before and I never figured out why. We're not seeing it. This was a picture. You have to go back to a couple weeks. I apologize. I don't know why the slides do this. Where I had a progressive series of the furry lining of the artery all the way down to the naked lining where that artery was removed, where that furry fuzzy coat was removed. And that is definitely a problem for us. Now, boy, I wish I could restore these slides for you because there's some important things that I wanted you to see, but it's not showing on this one. You guys have this on your PDF handouts that Lori forwarded to you just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to do my best to get through this and hopefully we'll restore some semblance of the slides that I'm intending you to see. Okay, this slide was basically telling you that the lining of the artery changes pretty quickly. Within 8 hours, you can start to change the lining. So the body responds quickly to good or bad inflammatory states. This should be showing you the lining. Well, this is hard for me because I can't see anything. You have a picture of a tennis court and the intestinal tract. We talked about this in the presentation on Sunday, that your intestinal tract would cover the surface area of 2 tennis courts. That tells you how important that protective barrier is to the outside environment, how critical it is that we have plenty of surface area to help us digest food, to absorb the nutrients we need. That large surface area has 70% of our immune system that lines the gut. That's the immune system saying, we know this is a potential invasion point for bad things. We're going to put our immune system right there to protect you. And especially from those toxins that sometimes get on our food and that we inadvertently swallow. We also know that the brain and gut communicate together. The nerves in the brain are wired to the gut. And some people believe that if you have depression, you can reverse depression by healing the gut. You know that you've got gut issues if you are intolerant to certain foods, if you get gassy, if you get bloated, if you have mucousy diarrhea, or you have problems with constipation, or you've been on a lot of antibiotics over the years and you don't have regular bowel movements. You know there's dysfunction in the gut. You don't need any tests or studies to prove that. What we're trying to do is restore that gut to be healthy again. The best way to do that is to eat nature's foods, because nature's foods will give the nourishment to those bacteria in the gut that you need. You can spend a lot of money on supplements. You can spend a lot of money on probiotics. And I think there are times when probiotics are beneficial, especially if you've been on an antibiotic for any reason. I think anybody on an antibiotic should get a bottle of refrigerated, encapsulated probiotics and take it until that bottle's gone to help restore those healthy bacteria and that delicate balance that your gut wants. But I'm not sure that we need to rely on probiotics our entire life. We need to rely on nature's foods, because that restores that lush, healthy garden, so to speak, of those bacteria that need to be in our intestinal tract. Okay, we talked about celiac disease and the fact that we've doubled the incidence or prevalence of celiac disease every 15 years since 1975. And more people are having problems with this. And the reason for that is likely due to both the quality and the quantity of dietary gluten in our diet. Gluten is the protein in grains, especially in flour. And it's what allows the flour to hold its structure when it raises and you put yeast in a loaf of bread. It's what gives it that ability to hold itself. And unfortunately, with the modifications that we've done genetically with many of the grains that are now grown in the United States, the amount of gluten, the amount of this protein far exceeds what nature intended. And when our body sees this much protein in its intestinal tract, it really feels threatened. It gets very inflamed. So we have these conditions like gas and bloating and diarrhea and mucus. And then we start to have leaking of small particles through that brick and mortar lining of the gut. The brick represents the cells, the intestinal cells, and the mortar represents the glue that holds that together. Well, that mortar, that glue called zonulin, starts to break down, and it allows small proteins to leak through those cracks And the body sees that and goes absolutely berserk because it feels very threatened by unfamiliar proteins. And we get this huge inflammatory response. So this is really what celiac disease does. But a lot of inflammatory conditions, autoimmune conditions, are believed to enter through the gut for the same reasons. The gut isn't healthy because of the foods we eat and the medications we put in our gut. And this allows the body to overreact to proteins that it doesn't recognize and cause all these inflammatory conditions. So here's just a few of examples of how we disrupt this healthy microbiome, the bacteria in our gut. We use too many steroids, antibiotics, and we use these acid blockers. So the remedy is to address the causes and to change our lifestyle, and then maybe to use probiotics as a starting point. But remember, nature's foods will help our gut heal probably better than anything else. We talked about foods that age us. This is a review. The trans fats, which are not found in nature, excessive animal proteins. We are more herbivores than we are carnivores, so we need probably less protein than what you've been told. We know that these sugars are very inflammatory. They turn on insulin levels. We talked about processed flours being deficient in vitamins and minerals. We talked about tap water and bottled water containing chlorine and PCBs and other chemicals that have estrogen-like characteristics that are not good for our immune system or our endocrine system. We talked about the genetically modified grains a minute ago with aging the gut and destroying the gut lining and straining our antioxidant defense systems. So this is that leaky gut thing that happens when you put the wrong things in your gut. You change the gut lining from a very healthy, large surface area to we call it denuded, or a sort of a naked lining where you've lost this protective barrier. And what happens is you get these different compounds, toxins and bacteria and food particles leaking through. This yellow here represents this glue, the zonulin, and when that breaks down because of these poor diets, then things start to leak into the bloodstream, and the body sees that and causes this autoimmune reaction. And so you have all these inflammatory states, and we can measure the inflammation with blood work. We can feel it with our gut and with our brain fog, but we correct it by eating nature's food and avoiding the offending agents such as toxins and foods that are high in gluten and casein. Casein is an animal protein that's very sticky. Casein belongs in the gut of calves, but not in the gut of humans. Human milk does not make casein, as far as I remember. And then we have to eliminate environmental toxins through one of these 4 routes. We can sweat it, urinate it out, breathe it out, or most of these toxins are eliminated in our bowel movements. So we want healthy bowel movements. That requires that our liver knows how to get these toxins from the gut into the bowel movements. And this is the process. You have 2 different pathways that get rid of these bad toxins. There's phase 1, which are fat-soluble toxins, and there are phase 2, which are water-soluble toxins. And in both cases, the body will recognize whether they're fat or water-soluble, and then they'll bind chemicals to make it be able to be excreted in the bile and then excreted in the intestinal tract through the colon. This is just showing you some of the nutrients that are needed for a healthy liver. And you can see there's a lot of B vitamins. You can see there's magnesium and glutathione, and these are some supplements that can help the liver to operate in a fully functional, healthy manner. So how do we enhance the health of our gut? Well, we have to limit the things that hurt the gut. We need to consider eating meats that aren't raised in a feed, I'm trying to think of the word, a feed lot. It'd be much better to have cows that are bred and raised right off the grass on the farmland as opposed to the feedlot. And then we want to eat wholesome foods as much as we can. And fermented foods can also have a lot of bacteria that can help booster the healthy, friendly bacteria in our gut. So other ways that we can heal the gut, I'm not going to read these, but these are somewhat repetitive. Again, there's more things. So we talked about there are some supplements, and you'll see that these supplements, many of them, especially the ones that I put in boldface font, overlap with the supplements I mentioned a few weeks ago. So magnesium, B complex, vitamin D are always healthy. I think they should be standard supplements for just about all of us. We want to eat to live. So the way we do that is we eat the foods that nature has put energy into. And that means if nature's put energy into it, it's converted sunlight into plant energy. And usually those plants have a lot of colors. And that means they're rich in antioxidants, and we need to chew them to extract them. We don't want to heat them up if we can help it. It's measured by this oxygen radical absorbance capacity, the ability of these foods, of these vegetables in particular, to neutralize free radicals. But most of our packaged foods are dead, meaning they have no enzymes in them. They contain no antioxidants. They may give us some nutrition, but they're probably going to give us a lot of sugar, a lot of unhealthy fats, and probably more sodium than we need. So the foods that help us heal, this is the image. I keep trying to plant this in your mind. This is the list of some of the vegetables. This is what you need to be thinking every day. How am I going to get vegetables in my diet? Now, this was a slide that I had in the presentation a couple of years ago. I said, hey, this is a great smoothie. This is something that you could have to get one way to get green leafy vegetables and some raspberries and strawberries in your diet. Just mix it up. Maybe put a little almond milk in it that doesn't have many calories. If you drink it that way, it's going to taste like grass, and it really does. So you're swallowing something that's healthy, but not necessarily enjoyable. If you put 2 ounces of apple cider in it, there's a lot of sugar in that, and that will make it sweet. And some of you are able to tolerate that and sip on it like a drink. I can sip on it like a drink. No one else in my family can do that. They take it like medicine. But I asked you in the presentation Tuesday, what's the good and the bad with this particular approach? Well, the good is you're getting green leafy vegetables and you're getting berries rich in antioxidants. The bad is you're getting a lot of sugar. The other bad part of this approach, these green smoothies, is that you're not letting the nitrates in these green leafy vegetables have any chance to convert to nitrite on the back of your tongue. If you chew the green leafy vegetables, this kale medley, in your mouth, you will use enzymes in your mouth to help you pull the nitrates out. Those bacteria in your mouth convert the nitrate to nitrite, which you then swallow. And if your gut is healthy, you'll make nitric oxide. So this is not ideal in terms of making nitric oxide out of foods that normally have a lot of nitrate in it. And it's not ideal in terms of the sugar content. Here's some fruits that help you heal. And again, you have to be careful with canned fruits in particular, and be careful with the dried fruits because they have a lot of sugar in it. I shared with you today on Facebook, our Facebook page, if you looked at it, the dried fruits that I'll have with my nuts and seeds when I need just a quick pickup in the middle of the afternoon. I like just a little bit of sweetness in those, in that handful of nuts and seeds. And so I'll put a little bit of craisins or pineapple in, knowing that's got a lot of sugar, so I have to be careful on the amount. This was actually a cool slide because it showed you this oxygen radical absorbance capacity in different foods, the ability of these foods to neutralize free radicals. And as you study this, you'll see there's 2 food groups that are really good at this, the bean family and the berry family. So most of you know that these berries are good and rich in antioxidants, but I put this slide to show you that beans are also an excellent source of antioxidants. So you want to try to find ways to get beans in your diet if you can. They're rich in fiber, they're rich in vitamins, minerals, a fair protein source, and a good carbohydrate source, a filling carbohydrate source. Then we talked about the right proteins. And I just put this list up here as a reference guide. And then I ask you, how much meat do you need? Well, if you look at these animals that have a lot of meat on them, none of them are carnivorous. They're able to make protein from a plant-based diet. And that's what our mouth structure teaches us. We are more like these animals than we are a mountain lion, a tiger, a cat, or a dog. So we should probably be eating more of this type of vegetation, not necessarily these shrubs and these grasses, but the message is that we're plant eaters more than we're flesh eaters. We talked about calculating your protein requirements. And if you did this, you'll see that based on your weight, it's not really that high. When I shared with you my protein drink today, the premium protein drink that I get from Sam's Club, you saw that I think it's 30 grams of protein. Well, that's just about half of my protein requirements for the day. I got beans in my meal today, and I actually had an egg in the protein drink. So I hesitate to tell you that, but every now and then I'll put a fresh raw egg in my protein drink and drink it. If you're not comfortable with that, I don't want anybody to get salmonella, but I've never got salmonella. But if you don't like that, then just boil the egg, have a hard-boiled egg, and that's a great protein source. So these are some of the protein requirements. If you're trying to heal it from a surgery or trauma, or you're an athlete trying to make sure your muscles grow as strong as they can and as large as they can, you might need a little bit more. But you certainly don't want to eat too much. And in my opinion, powerlifters and bodybuilders and many athletes eat way too much animal protein, and you'll see them break down over the years as you follow them. Their joints will break down, their skin will break down, they age quicker. I just don't think we are meant to be flesh-eating humans. So here's some of the grains that you can think about that you have to be careful with, and complex carbohydrates. You've got to be careful with these because they all elicit an insulin response. And then fats, we want these healthy fats as much as we can. We've got to be careful with vegetable oils because they're so rich in omega-6 fatty acids that are very inflammatory. So this is the list of healing foods. This is another image of the foods that we should heal with, that we need to see on our plate. Lots of color, lots of vegetables, a little bit of fruit, some whole grains, a little bit of beans, and some nuts and seeds. This Frank Madrena, for those of you who like this guy is amazing. He is a vegetarian, and the things he does on a chin-up bar and standing on his hands, he makes it look like he's really, that gravity has no effect on him. So I just love some of the videos I've seen of him and what he's able to do with his body. Then we have Patrick Bambouin, who is at one point was the strongest man in the world, complete vegetarian, and you can see he's got a large muscle mass. And then many of you know Carl Lewis, who back in I think it was the 90s won a lot of gold medals as a sprinter and a long jumper. So another vegetarian. You can have good muscle mass as a vegetarian, but I'm not necessarily saying you need to be vegetarian. I'm just saying much less animal protein than probably you're used to eating. We gave you this image to help you estimate the amounts of different foods. This is a nice little guide. Remember, this is an average size hand. You have to assume that your palm is average and similar to most other people. If it's much smaller or much bigger, then you have to adjust accordingly. I gave you some examples of what a 1,200 calorie diet would look like. This is based on the exchange list that dietitians use when they're trying to teach diabetics how to eat. It's not about calories. So this will be modified in our next edition of the Fit for Life manual, because I don't really like this. This is based on the idea of snacking through the day, which is sort of what was promoted for a long time and what I was promoting. But I'll show you in a minute here why I don't like to do that. This is 1,500 calories a day. It's not how many calories you eat. It's about the quality of food that you eat and when you eat. This is a sample. Again, it's not necessarily about calories. This was in the journal on page 97 through 104, and there's some good and bad in this. One of the things that I struggled with a little bit is telling you to have breakfast every day. If you're trying to lose weight, you can certainly have breakfast, but you really can't be eating 3 meals a day if you're trying to lose weight, in my opinion. I'll show you why in just a minute. But the point I'm making here is that when you're eating, you should have a fat source and a protein source at every meal, because that's what will hold you over. If you just have a salad for lunch and nothing else, no fat or protein, you're going to be hungry within 2 hours. The fat and the protein will keep you satiated or full for most of the afternoon if you get enough fat. That's why I had an avocado today, or half an avocado in my salad. This is also from the journal. And again, just showing you what you would focus on at lunch. Try to eat a light lunch. And then at dinner time, you want vegetables should be the primary focus, and not eating too much before 3 hours before bedtime. Okay, this is also kind of the exchange diet modified that dietitians use. Again, if your goal is to lose weight, you cannot be eating 3 or 4 servings of starches a day. You just will not be successful unless you're really exercising. But the rest of these ideas and these types of foods are probably something that I think you should be trying to accomplish. I shared with you the Lose It app. I really think this is an excellent app to help you track your calories, not necessarily the calories, but your grams of carbohydrates. It's a free app, but to track this well, you need to pay for the service charges, and I think it's a pretty nominal fee. But my recommendation for weight loss is 25 to 75 grams a day of carbohydrates. So 50 is probably where you want to target for most of you. If you're less than 25, then that's pretty much the definition of the keto diet. I don't like the keto diet because I think you lose too much protein. I'm sorry, you lose too much. You do lose protein. You lose muscle mass, and you lose the collagen, so your skin seems to wrinkle and sag. I really don't think you should be eating this keto diet. You'll lose weight pretty quickly. You'll lose fat and you'll lose muscle, and in my opinion, you'll look like you've got cancer, or you just don't look healthy, even though the weight comes off fast. So you do need a little bit of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates will help you build muscle. So this requires that you plan your meals in advance, and it's intentional healing. You're creating a plan to help you heal. So I would shoot for these type of ratios, and this was taken right from my Lose It app back in October, and you can see that on this day it tallied 45 grams of carbohydrates. Well, that's right around 50. That was pretty good. My fat percentage was 50%. My protein was 21%. So it was pretty close to what's recommended. And then you say, well, what did you eat? Well, this is what I ate. I skipped breakfast. I had my nuts and dried fruit mix that I showed you today in my Facebook post. I had the salad that basically I showed you today at lunchtime. I had this Premier shake also. So pretty much the same things I ate today around lunchtime. And then at dinner, I only had 355 calories, and I had this kind of a stir fry with some chicken breast, some cauliflower rice, and it was sort of sauteed in a pan, and it gave me some protein, some fat, and a little bit of vegetables. And so I wasn't starving, but I was fairly I was a little bit hungry at the end of the day because it really wasn't a lot of calories. You can see I was 998 calories under my budget. And then this is showing you again the carbohydrate intake was very low. So this is actually a pretty good day for me. We talked about weight loss hormones. If you're here for weight loss, this is something you got to come back to, because if you understand this, you will be able to lose weight. First and foremost, you have to keep your insulin level down. Insulin makes you fat. Insulin goes up when you eat sugar and carbs. That's pretty simple, harder to put into practice. Fasting and a low-carb diet will keep your insulin levels down. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It causes you to make fat. If you're always stressed, if you're always sleep deprived, if you're always worrying, if you're always trying to do too much and you never have any downtime, you're making too much cortisol, and you're going to be in an uphill battle to lose weight. You have to manage stress better. And again, stress is a matter of intentionally writing your story and not creating more stress than is actually there. And a lot of us do that. We start the day off and we think, wow, this is going to be bad. Look at all the things that have happened today. And because this happened, now this is going to be bad tonight. And tomorrow I'm going to be tired because I didn't get any sleep. And we just write stories that most of the time don't even come true. Ghrelin is the hormone that makes your stomach growl. Ghrelin and growl, that's how I remember it. This will make you feel hungry. If you fast and you eat a low-carb diet, ghrelin is going to go home and quit bugging you. Ghrelin is going to quit having that impact on making you hungry. There's another hormone called leptin. It comes from your intestinal tract. Leptin keeps your lips closed. It takes away your desire to eat. It makes you feel full. Fasting increases the leptin levels in your blood. Fasting decreases the ghrelin levels in your blood, as does low carbohydrate diets. So the more you cut down on sugar and carbs and the more you fast intermittently, the less hungry you're going to be and the easier it becomes. Many of you have low thyroid levels. We measured this at the beginning of the class. Your free T3 should be 3.5 or higher. If it's lower than that, you might consider taking thyroid to bump up your metabolism and to help you feel better. Usually it's hair loss, dry skin, and brittle nails that are a sign of low thyroid. Testosterone and estrogen, these levels have to be optimal. If you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, you're probably way too low in these hormones, and you need to consider supplementing the hormones, which we'll talk about in week 11. So to lose weight, you have to reduce the sugar intake, cut back on the refined carbs, eat moderate amounts of protein, target your carbs at about 50 grams a day. Now, this is a really key image here. I want you to remember this because every time you eat, what you're seeing here is these surges in insulin. For breakfast, you have an egg and a piece of toast and a glass of orange juice. Well, your insulin level is going to go up, then it's going to come down, and you're going to be hungry at 10 o'clock. So at 10 o'clock, you're going to have a Danish in the break room at work. Then it's going to drop and you're going to be hungry again. And at lunch, you're going to have 2 pieces of pizza. Somebody's going to order pizza and you're going to have a Diet Coke. The insulin level goes up again. Then in the afternoon, you're going to have a bag of chips and maybe another Diet Coke. Insulin's going to go up. And then at dinner, you're going to eat what you eat. Insulin goes up. Then you're going to snack before dinner or before you go to bed. Every time you're above this curve, the insulin level is high. And when the insulin level is high, it's telling you that you're making fat. What you want to see is you want to add this effect up over 24 hours, and look where your insulin level is or your blood sugar level is over the 24-hour period. You can see if you add up the area under the curve, most of the area under the curve is too high. You're making too much insulin because you're snacking all day long. That's why I don't want you to eat 4 or 5 or 6 meals a day. I think that's faulty. It makes no biochemical sense. It's not really conducive to weight loss. So I'm suggesting that we live more like our great-grandparents would have lived 150, 200 years ago. Food wasn't guaranteed at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And snacks were probably not something that people had. Maybe one day they had, they got a rabbit and they had rabbit meat. And the next 2 or 3 days, they found some berries and nuts, maybe a fish out of the river, but food wasn't always guaranteed. And that's kind of how our body and our metabolism is meant to survive. If we start feeding just on schedule, and especially if it's carbs, good luck trying to control the weight, because unless you've got really, really good genetics, we're all going to gain weight. Here's another way to look at this. Again, if you're fasting, you're not eating until noon, your insulin levels are going to be low. And then from noon until 6, you're eating. And even the diet that I ate today with the dried fruits and the beans that I had, and I'm trying to think what else I ate. There's something else that I ate today that would cause my insulin levels to go up. But if I fast the rest of the time, you can see this area under the curve. There's the insulin level on a 24-hour span of time is generally low. This is conducive to weight loss because the insulin doesn't have the effect. And again, if you increase your insulin, you're increasing your hunger signals. So in this case, this 24-hour period, you're telling ghrelin that makes your stomach growl, it's not going to have an impact. It's not going to release. So you're not going to be hungry. You're telling you're going to decrease the insulin levels so you can burn fat. You're going to increase the leptin levels so you feel full. So this is how you do it. This is how you lose weight. This is how you lose the hunger and the cravings for food. So intermittent fasting is not meant to be starvation. you'll feel like you're starving. If you feel like you're starving during an intermittent fast, it's because you've been eating too many sugars, too many carbs. Within a week of cutting those out of your diet, you're going to realize that it's really not hard at all. And a 24-hour fast is, you may have some periods of hunger, but it's not going to feel like you're starving. What you want to do is train your body to eat food when you need it and then fast for long periods in between. This is a cool slide from Journal of Clinical Nutrition, and it's basically saying if you fast for 4 days, you will lose about 3 kilograms, about 6 pounds. A lot of that's water weight. There's some fat loss. But the most important point I want to make here is that most people think if you fast, you'll slow your metabolism. But this line is showing that it's actually a 12% increase in your metabolic rate. And that's what you want. So fasting, intermittent fasting, doesn't slow your metabolism down. It actually enhances your metabolism. Then there's the same thing that happens with 4 days of fasting. Here, what you're seeing is by the 4th day, you're starting to burn more fatty acids. You're burning fat much better as an energy source. And that's really what we're trying to do if we're trying to lose weight. This slide is basically saying that intermittent fasting over 70 days does not burn muscle. People, if you're on the keto diet, you will burn muscle, and you don't want to do that. But here we have this fat-free mass, which is muscle at 52 kilograms. This is for all the subjects in this study. Their average was 52 kilograms of muscle mass, and at the end of the 70 days, they had 52.8 grams of fat muscle mass. They didn't lose muscle. What they did lose is their fat. So 43 kilograms of fat, and at the end, 38 kilograms of fat. So they lost 5 kilograms, which is about 12 pounds. So intermittent fasting does not burn muscle. Ketogenic diets burn muscle. You'll look thinner. You'll look frail. You don't look healthy. Your skin sags. It doesn't look healthy when you see it. This is an example of an 18-hour fast, which is basically saying you're not eating breakfast. You can eat breakfast if you want. If you eat breakfast, then have breakfast and lunch, and that's your 6-hour window, and then you skip dinner. There's nothing wrong with that. Breakfast just means break fast. When are you going to break fast? That's what breakfast is. This is 24-hour fasting sample. And what I'm trying to show you is, you can intermix these. You can do a 24-hour fast, then 24 hours or 18 hours. I'm sorry, a 6-hour feeding window, then another 24-hour fast. You can do this any way you want. But right out of the gate, you're going to feel really hungry through this. So this is something that you do later as you progress. This is a 36-hour fast, what it looks like. So you would eat on Sunday night and you don't eat again until Tuesday morning. That's 36 hours. You're going to drink a lot of fluids in the meantime, non-caloric fluids, but you're basically going all day Monday and Sunday night and Monday night without food. What I would suggest is you do this alternate intermittent fasting where you're telling your body, I'm not promising you when you're going to eat again. I will tell you when you're going to eat, and I will eat when I feel like I need to eat. And that's when your body is going to respond the most favorably to burn fat. Same concept with building muscle. It's called muscle confusion. The muscles never really have an idea what you're doing, and they will respond to every training session if you've always got it a little bit mixed, a little bit different from the training session before. These are just some common behaviors of successful weight loss. These people, 3,000 people, had lost over 70 pounds. They kept it off for 6 years. They ate a high complex carbohydrate diet, which is primarily vegetables. It was low in fat. Now, the problem with this is they're probably hungry. And the problem with this is they're likely to gain this weight back. They monitor their self regularly with both their weight and their food intake. Planning what you're going to eat and knowing what it's going to do to you takes time, but it's so meaningful and so helpful and so educational. The other thing they did was lots of activity. And that's kind of the biggest loser approach. We're going to tell you to eat a lot of vegetables. We're going to burn a ton of calories off. But the biggest loser approach is not successful because people really haven't changed their metabolism. They've relied on 3,000 or 4,000 calories of exercise a day, which is really difficult to sustain in real life. The other thing about this study is 78% of these people ate breakfast. And again, eating breakfast isn't bad, but you still want to keep that 6-hour block of time where you're eating, so you've got 18 hours of fasting. So the right combinations of food, here's what it looks like. And then I'm not going to take too much time here, but each meal you should consider having a protein and a fat source. Both of these will sustain fullness and help delay the onset of hunger. You need to be very careful about carbohydrates. When I think carbohydrates on my diet, it's healthy fruits and vegetables. It's not whole grains. If I eat too many whole grains, I'm going to gain weight. I did have beans today. I felt like I needed something before I went to the gym to lift weights. And it was just 1/4 of a cup of a 5-bean salad, so it was just right for me. Okay, I don't like this slide, but I'm showing you this because it's in the workbook on page 92. I was trying to give people a way to estimate how many calories they should target. And so if you don't exercise or you're older than 65, then maybe a 1,200 calorie diet. If you're sort of the working age group, then moderate exercise and a 1,500 calorie diet should be about right. And then if you're very active, maybe 1,800 calories a day with the right foods, you would be able to lose weight. The right times, well, the key here is intermittent fasting. I put this in boldface. So the assignments for week 6 were to say, I need to change this because I don't want you to eat 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. I want you to eat 2 meals a day and be very careful of the snack in between, but try to go 18 hours without anything but water or a non-caloric drink. And then I want you to cut back on beef and dairy because we don't need as many of these animal proteins as we think we do. And then try nuts and seeds. Some of you have diverticulosis. You have to be very careful. If you're concerned about that and don't want a flare up of diverticulitis, which I'll show you that in week 11, then you can get nut butters. You can go to Amish country or a health food store and get cashew butter or almond butter and still get the healthy fats and the proteins in those foods. You're going to continue your fitness activities, hopefully 5 days a week, at the minimum 3 days a week. And then I wanted you to continue your reading assignment. Next week, we're going to apply everything you've learned. And as we go through reading food labels, I think you realize how much you've learned and how much this has benefited you. So this will be the application portion of the last 3 or 4 weeks that we've talked about nutrition. So with that, let's see if I can exit this. And if I remembered how to do this, I stop the share screen and I entertain questions. Are there any questions?
Yes, there are. They're not coming across for you.
No, I don't see any yet.
Okay, I can read them for you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there food types that would cause your insulin to go up and down a lot faster or slower? Yes, that's a great question, Sarah. The foods that make your insulin spike high and fast are primarily sugars and carbohydrates. So pancakes would really do it because not only do you have the simple carbs in the pancakes, but you have the syrup with it. But the key here is there's very little fat with it and there's very little protein. If you have pancakes, but you also have 2 scrambled eggs or 2 eggs over easy with a couple strips of bacon, that's more calories, but that's going to slow everything down and that's going to blunt the insulin response. You're still going to get a big insulin response, but it's not going to be a real sharp peak and drop. It's going to be high and stay high and then come down. So I hope that answers your question. Sugar frosted flakes for breakfast, a bowl of cereal like that is a really poor choice because that's all sugar. There's really no fat in that and there's no protein in it. So the blood sugar is going to go way up come way down, and by 2 hours later, you're going to be starving again because you're going to be hypoglycemic. So if you're going to eat your pancakes, I would eat probably less pancakes, and I would try to make sure I had some eggs or bacon or sausage with it, because that will keep you from feeling that spike and slow that whole process down so you're not starving again shortly after breakfast. Okay, so if you're on prescription medications and need to have food with medicines, yeah, that's a tough one. I guess you do the best you can. If you're taking medication 3 times a day, then it might be a little bit more difficult to do this intermittent fast. Twice a day, you'd probably be okay. So what I would do if you do have to eat 3 meals a day, don't think of it as a meal. Think of it as something in your stomach to help you absorb the medication. So, you could have if you're trying to skip breakfast, then maybe you have a celery stalk with some hummus on it, or a spoonful of peanut butter, and use that as your meal for that that time you're taking your medication. You have to have food. That is a little bit tough. If you're diabetic, you have to watch this fasting, because you do not want to be taking a lot of insulin when you're doing intermittent fasting, because your sugar will come down really quick. So I do want you to be really careful about that. If you're on oral agents for your diabetes and you're seeing that your blood sugars are dropping, then cut back on the oral agents, but especially be careful with insulin. And again, as a diabetic taking insulin, all you need to do is take insulin and eat food, and you're telling your body you're making fat, and that makes your diabetes worse. So that's a catch-22. So intermittent fasting is really the way to help weight loss and to reverse this insulin problem that diabetics have.
So I don't see any other questions, but there are a couple comments that I think are worth posting.
Okay. Good. Glad that helped, Sandra. Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about intermittent fasting. I heard a nephrologist speak a couple years ago at one of my hormone conferences. His name is Jason Fung, and he is a kidney specialist in Toronto, Canada, and he sees patients on dialysis. That's basically his specialty, is dialysis. And most of these patients have uncontrolled diabetes, and he's tried to help them for years. And he really studied the research and came up with a really simple plan with intermittent fasting based on all the research. He wrote a book called The Obesity Code and another book called The Diabetes Code. And it basically has got the same kind of content. Well, what I found really fascinating from his lecture, I mean, the physicians loved him, but he had his dietitian with him. And she was a classically trained dietitian who was trying to help people lose weight on the exchange diet. None of them were losing weight. She was about 5'4" and 200 pounds, and she was not able to lose weight herself. She was struggling, and she's like, well, I'm a dietitian telling people how to lose weight, and I can't lose weight. Well, then she said, well, Dr. Fung is saying I need to do intermittent fasting. So that's what she started to do, 18-hour fasts. After a couple of weeks, she threw in a 24-hour fast or a 36-hour fast. Every now and then she'd do a 48-hour or 2-day fast. Well, she's speaking to us, telling us this story. Within probably 6 months, she lost all of her excess weight, got down to a weight of 135, started lifting weights, and her body is nice and toned and trim. She doesn't look grotesque. She looks very fit and very healthy. What I remember her saying that just struck me odd and really left a deep impression on me is she said, I feel great. I have great energy. I can think clear. But when I get home at night, I look at my husband and I say, is tonight the night we're supposed to eat? When did we eat our last meal? I can't remember. Was it 2 nights ago that we had dinner? Because I'm getting hungry, but I'm not sure I'm ready to eat yet. And yet she was muscular. She was fit. She was energetic. Now think of this. She's saving so much time because she doesn't have to make a meal, clean up the meal, prepare the meal. She's saving money because she's not eating as much. And I just think this whole concept of intermittent fasting can really make a huge difference. It's really not that complicated. But if you are diabetic and you're concerned about that, either send a message or let Kelly know so I can address that further, or talk to your medical provider, because you really do not want to do intermittent fasting if you're on insulin unless you lower your insulin levels. And again, if you're on oral agents for your diabetes, then you just cut those back. You'd be much better with your diabetes to run a little bit high with your sugars than risk running low, because that's obviously very scary for a diabetic. So is there any other questions or any other comments? Yeah, we're having fun with the Facebook, and Kelly posted a bunch of videos today. We had some specimens. Hopefully some of you have seen that. We can tell when some of you watch it, but I hope all of you will take the time to watch what we're posting. Dr. Jacobowski and I have started to post some simple short videos on exercise and muscle balance. We're going to post another one. We're going to do another one this week. We've got a lot of great information to share with you to help you with back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, core strength, balance, all those things. We'll show you how to use the weights correctly in a gym. Real simple, short videos I think will be really helpful. We're so excited with this format that we can share this with you. And some of you have been posting what you've been eating. You've been telling us how you're exercising. I wanted to get in and brag what I did on Saturday. I ran a 5K on my treadmill in 29 minutes. That was about 6.3 miles an hour, which isn't too bad for where I am, but I know I can do better, so I'm setting my goals. So I love what you guys are posting, and we're all part of this group, and hopefully everybody feels comfortable sharing their successes and their struggles with the group, because we're all there to support you, and I know that Kelly loves this as much as anything. Oh, excellent, Paul. That's really good. Yeah, see, it's amazing how this really helps to control your appetite, but all you have to do is understand that leptin keeps your lips closed because you feel satisfied now, and ghrelin is going to make, you're not going to growl anymore because you're saying, I'm in control here, ghrelin. You're not going to make me hungry. Now, the other day, I was eating really well. Saturday and Sunday, Saturday I ran on the treadmill, burned a bunch of calories, felt really good. Sunday, I'm trying to remember what happened Sunday, but it slowly fell apart. I came home from church and I had a little bit of something that I shouldn't have had. And then my wife, I don't want to get her in trouble, but she handed me this little bowl of like homemade cheesecake with cherries on top. I thought, well, you hand it to me and you're going to eat. I can't offend you, so I'm going to eat it with you. And then I was really full, and I was planning on a really healthy meal for dinner, which I had, but we had friends over, and the friends brought us chocolate chip cookies. And when that gets in my brain, I have a hard time with it. So within probably 12 hours, I had eaten the bag of chocolate chip cookies she gave me. It's probably 7 or 8 of them. And I'm telling you, yesterday I was starving, and I knew exactly what happened. That disastrous Sunday I had just told leptin, you're not going to keep his lips closed. We're not going to secrete any leptin. The insulin level was high, and ghrelin was going crazy. I was starving, even though I ate many calories beyond what I needed. So it's a real quick, you notice this really quickly when you do it right, and you feel different when you do it wrong. So hopefully you're going to all have the experience that Paul is having. And I know Paul is a very active guy. He's a pretty impressive specimen. Don't want to embarrass you, Paul, but I appreciate you sharing that with us, because I think you're on the right track. Anybody else want to say anything? Again, thanks for being on the call tonight, or on the Facebook Live. We really appreciate you checking in, and it's really important to me that all of you are having a good experience with this. You're getting what you need from it, because we don't always hear from you, and I just want to make sure that we're answering all your questions, and it's a positive time. Marilyn's had a raw egg protein as an old farmer. Yeah. I'm kind of like you, Marilyn. I'm not sure it's certainly different than what most people have been told, but you don't want to risk getting salmonella. So if you don't like eggs and you don't have fresh eggs, I would not recommend it. But if you're comfortable, I don't know that there's anything that's terrible with it. But I don't want to be the one that you blame for getting salmonella. So don't take this as my recommendation to have raw eggs.
I think that's it, Dr. McKnight.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.